Hey there. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about something super important, but a little bit different. I want to talk to you about burnout and how to avoid it and what to do about it with one of my good friends, Jennifer Bassman. So, let's jump in.
Welcome to the Course Creators HQ podcast, helping you navigate the latest techniques for creating and marketing online courses. And now, here is your host, Julie Hood.
So every time I get finished with my challenge and the 24-hour course creator launch, I have to be super careful not to hit this burnout stage where I just don't want to do anything. And so I thought it might be helpful for you today to talk with my good friend and coach, Jennifer Bassman, who specifically helps people with this issue and trying to avoid it. She has an incredible email newsletter, so make sure you grab the freebie, and you may even want her journal. So we dove into all kinds of topics. It's kind of a longer episode, but we had so much fun chatting. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, because we not only talked about burnout, we also talked about tackling perfectionism and people pleasing, and then even how to handle stress. And we sidebarred into what should you do with students if they're not a fit for your course. So lots and lots of goodies in this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Also, obviously, we are not doctors. We're not giving medical advice. This is just information for you, and definitely go see your own healthcare providers if there's more attention or anything that you need. Also, we did have a couple cuss words that slipped out. So if you have kids listening, just wanted to give you a heads up. This might not be the episode to have them listening. So enjoy. I hope you like this episode and get some good advice. All right, gang. I am so excited to have Jennifer Bassman with us today. She is my burnout coach. And so I'm thrilled to have her sharing some of her secrets with us. I twisted her arm and got her to tell us some things that we can do to prevent and help and avoid burnout, because I know it's something my course creators deal with more often than we want to admit, honestly. So Jennifer, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I love talking about stress, with stressing everybody out and burning y'all out.
Yes. And we have been friends on Clubhouse for a long time now. So we always have good rooms on there together. So I know this is going to be so much fun. But I'd love to just jump in because you have so much good stuff for us. How do we actually spot if burnout is about to happen? How do we spot it? Because I think that's the first thing, isn't it? For some people, like they don't even realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm burned out.
Yes. Yeah. Spotting it's kind of tough because the typical symptoms kind of look like a variety of things. It could look like you're just exhausted. It could look like you've just had a bad day. It could also look, somewhat like depression. But you have an inability to concentrate. You can't focus. And these are things that and when I give you this list, these are things that you were able to do before, or these were things that were not happening. And burnout isn't just one of these things. There's usually a combination of at least 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that are happening that are really starting to tear you up. Like you get to the point where none of your coping mechanisms are working on any of these things. So an inability to concentrate when you're usually pretty good at focusing. You're irritable and impatient with people. And this goes, even if you are an irritable or impatient person by trade, which some of us are, this goes beyond that. This is like literally one more person asks me one more effing thing, I'm going to blow, kind of like reaction to everything that comes your way. There's a lack of energy, especially consistent energy to be productive or do the things that you used to enjoy doing, or at least didn't mind doing. Because, we don't all 100% love 100% of our jobs, right? There's probably 20 to 30% that you could take or leave. But when I would say 75% of your job becomes just too much. Like, you just can't get out of bed to do it. We got to take a look at that. You don't find any satisfaction in achievements, things that you've accomplished, even if it's like you getting your to-do list done for the day, which so few of us actually, finish those, right? Your sleep has gone to crap. Most of my clients, when it comes to sleep, they describe being able to fall asleep, but not stay asleep. So they'll wake up at least once, maybe twice a night. And it's like around that 2:30, 3 a.m. time. And then your brain kicks in and you have trouble shutting it down. This one's my favorite. This was one of my burnout markers for myself, was cynicism is through the roof. I mean, I've got a dry sense of humor. I am a sarcastic person, but it turned mean. Like, I was just mean. It was funny, but it was mean.
So how did this all come up for you then? You were saying that that's what happened. Like, what was your story?
So I've owned small businesses for 23 years now. And best I can tell, because it's really hard to tell when burnout starts, because we adapt to stress so easily. We just kind of ignore and start using coping mechanisms that can usually take us, through quite a long time. So we can handle things. So we don't always notice when stuff happens. But I would say probably around 2008-ish, I really kind of hit a wall. I was really struggling to get through my days. I wasn't sleeping. I was anxious all the time. My brain just wouldn't shut off. I noticed my cynicism was creeping through, like things that I used to be able to keep in my head were now coming out of my mouth. Not always good. So my filter was gone. My concentration was terrible. And I just really was having trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I couldn't get excited about the business that I had created and, put my heart and soul into. And that business was dogs. I owned a dog daycare and a resort. And I just kind of got to this point where I just hit this wall where I just literally, so by about 2010, I just couldn't function anymore and I had to sell the business. Oh, wow. Which was, a blessing. Like, it ended up being the exact right thing to do. And I have to preface this by saying that is not always the right choice. Yes.
You don't tell everybody to quit, right?
I don't tell everybody to quit. That's not always the answer. For me, that was the answer. Just the severity, the environment, the business partners, like there was just kind of this, for a lack of a better term, shitstorm that was kind of happening around me that, coupled with my stress levels, was just not making it a productive, happy, or even profitable place for me to be. So what I had started to notice really was just all this anxiety that I started having panic attacks, which was new for me. So by about 2010, after I had, signed the paperwork, walked away, I was kind of left with this, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now? And I didn't even know at the time it was burnout. I just thought, at the time, I thought I was just a failure who couldn't handle stress, who couldn't handle running a business. Burnout had not come up in the conversation at all. That just wasn't a thing. And so I had run across an article online that had talked about burnout. And I was like, this checks all the boxes. And there was just that gut internal feeling, oh my gosh, I've hit what it is. This is what is going, this is the problem. This is what's going on with me. This is why sleep isn't working. This is why, getting out of that toxic environment still isn't solving my problems. And so I started doing a little bit of research, and back then there really wasn't much to find on the topic of burnout. Stress, sure. But I still hadn't done that equation. I knew, based on what I had found, that burnout's the result of chronic stress over a long period of time from, emotional, physical, or even mental tasks or work. So I just really, when I started digging even deeper and started putting, doing the math and finding, more information and kind of building out the story, and started testing, some of the theories that I had about it, it became kind of this, holy crap, why isn't anybody talking about this? Why isn't this more of a story among entrepreneurs, even? Because we put so much time and so much energy and so much heart into what we're doing. I mean, for some people, it's all about the money, but for a lot of people, it's not. Your business is more than that. It's an extension of who you are and your personality. It's like a baby. It's like having a little baby. So it's, so I finally, came around to the fact that I wasn't a failure. I was just burned out, and have spent the last 13 years actually. So this was about 2010 when I started, researching and started pulling more information together. I've spent the last 13 years researching it and asking questions and testing some theories. In the beginning, everybody was like, self-care, 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 take a vacation, take time off, take breaks. And it's like, in theory, that stuff should work, but it doesn't. And it's not that it's the wrong answer for burnout. It's not that you shouldn't be practicing self-care. But what I discovered over the years is that there's kind of a process we have to go through. Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that we were treating the surface problems. Everybody thinks that they're burned out because of their job. And that's not necessarily true. Your job can be a sign, a symptom of an underlying issue. So for me, what I discovered is my underlying issues that burned me out were my perfectionist and people-pleasing tendencies. And coupled with, and mix in some unrealistic expectations in there. And it just made for a very stressful, unmanageable environment. So kind of discovering that and treating those things was like a huge light bulb moment, going and digging down to the root cause of what's actually burned me out. And then I went and tested that on a bunch of people, a bunch of my clients said, hey, let's attack your burnout this way. And it worked far more often than it didn't.
I love that. And there's so many good things you said there, but I want to pull out the perfectionist piece of it, because sure, a lot of the folks that I work with really, that comes up for them a lot. They're trying to create their course. They're trying to make it perfect. They have this high expectation that they, in order to be an expert, that's where they need to go. And
same girl, same.
Yeah, I used to be that way. And then I guess it was probably a burnout episode when my son was a baby and I literally was not sleeping when he was 3 months old. And I'm like, I am going to self-destruct if I don't do something here. And part of what I had to do was just say, it's not, I remember specifically, he was 3 months old. It was Christmas. It was our first Christmas as a family. And I was trying to have this perfect experience for us as a, perfect first Christmas. It was a nightmare. Yeah. And so what do we do if we're in that perfectionist piece of the puzzle? What do you suggest?
Oh, this is a great question. First is understanding that you're there, understanding what perfectionism is, because perfectionism, I think, is kind of misunderstood. We think that it's about being organized and having everything in its place. And that's only like a part of it. There's really some deeper issues with perfectionism, like unrealistic expectations, like you were talking about unrealistic standards. You have very limiting beliefs about the way things are or the way things should be. You have some control issues that are
maybe just a little,
a couple. So it's getting, first of all, it's getting a better understanding of what perfectionism actually is and what parts of it you're participating in, because not all perfectionists operate the same way or on the same level. And it's not always as severe for some of us as it is for others. Mine was, I would say, in the fair to middle and severeness area. And it's still something. The one thing I also want to say is perfectionism is something you're going to continue to work on for the rest of your life. Like managing it. And people pleasing as well. Those are things that are intrinsic parts of your personality that you just have to figure out how to get under control. What are the mindset strategies that are going to work best for you to help you manage when, something doesn't turn out the way that you think that it should, or people don't show up in the way that you wanted them to, or your podcast, doesn't get edited, by a certain deadline. How are you going to learn to handle those things? And, also what really helped me too was having two trusted friends. In the beginning, it was just one. Now I have two friends that I gut check myself with frequently. Like, I just want to check my expectations because they're very polar opposite of me almost, and just how they see things. And they do a really good job of being honest with me, which means I have to, if I want this honesty, I have to be equally as open-minded, right? And accepting of feedback that I don't necessarily want to hear. But they, kind of help me check keep my expectations in check. I should, and standards in check, so to speak. Usually the conversation starts off like, am I crazy? Just want to check something out with you. That's usually how they know something like that's coming. And, people pleasing kind of works the same way too. If you're somebody that really, people pleasing is kind of based on a fear of not being liked, and, people not understanding you or not hearing you, and just always wanting to do your love language is doing for others and ignoring yourself and your own needs. And getting a sponsor, so to speak, I guess, that kind of helps you keep some of that behavior in check. A great example of that is another friend of mine who we worked on some events together. I, kind of went through my to-do list to make sure that we were covering everything. And she just kind of looked at me like, a lot of that's not your responsibility. Why are you doing that? Like, people are grown ass adults. We need to talk about this and allow, you aren't supposed to, and she really, helped me understand where my micromanaging was coming from. It wasn't intentional on her part. That wasn't what she was, but having that conversation with her of seeing what people actually expected of me and from me was groundbreaking. It was so much less, like I was delivering up here, felt like I consistently had to deliver up here to keep people happy. And it was really down here was where people's expectations were. So yeah, and with those two things, I love talking about it that way.
And I know when I was coaching with you too, that was one of the things I loved from you is you're really good at validating, like, okay, this is how you're feeling and I get why you feel this way. And that, to me, just hearing that from someone is so helpful. Like, you're not crazy. You're not, it totally makes sense. I see why you're there. And then you take us to that next step and you help me figure out, like, here's how to handle it. So you're so good at that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really easy to get gaslit in this world, especially with clients, because there's a lot of competition for us out there. And so I think we feel a lot of pressure, to perform a certain way or to, I'm trying to think of the right word, forgive me. But really I think we want to make customers happy or we're afraid they're going to go somewhere else. And so we get into this vicious cycle of trying to retain business and retain clients at our own expense. And, there's nobody there when you're in charge, when you're the business owner and you're worried about the bottom line, there's nobody there to help you with those boundaries and say enough is enough. And I have gotten really good at saying, you're not a fit for me, or this isn't working out. You need to find somebody else. Those became very key phrases to practice and get comfortable with, because you spend most of your time with your clients trying to make them happy. And a lot of clients have very unrealistic expectations.
Yes. And I remember when I first started, I specifically remember this one client and spending just hours and hours with him initially, even before he had bought anything. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is not this cannot continue. This is not sustainable. And so I'm with you. It has taken some practice and taken some advice, and like knowing specifically what to say, I think is also something. And you really help people with that with your course. So tell us about the course a little bit too, because it's so good on helping, okay, we've spotted and we've checked off a bunch of your boxes. And tell us about the course.
Yeah. So the course is called the Burnout Recovery Method, which is based on a method that I trademarked about, it's a specific path to recover from burnout. And what I've been really proud of when it comes to using this recovery method is that it seems to adjust nicely and adapt nicely to people's, needs, their specific path that they need to go down. But the first thing that, we need to do is figure out what it is that actually burned us out. So we spend time initially figuring out what the root cause of your burnout actually is. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to treat the wrong thing. And that's where people end up spinning their wheels and getting frustrated, or they it's like when you go and you take a vacation and you come back and you feel rested, but then 10 minutes into your workday, you're like, you just feel all that venom and stress bubbling up. It's because you didn't get to that root cause. So we spend time getting to that. And I do also want to say, even if you don't get to the right root cause, because sometimes we got to dig, like, we'll find a cause that's actually accurate. But then as we start working on that root cause, we dig a little deeper and we find something else that you're like, oh, I didn't know I was doing that. Because we're not totally aware of all the things, all of our habits, right? And that was something I found with myself. The people pleasing and the perfectionism was a recent being, within the last 5-6 years, like, oh, like it's more than not, working, paying attention and focusing on my strengths. It's, this is where my expectations are. This is what's ruining everything.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the course then can help us work through some of that.
Yeah. So we take that root cause and then we start working on, we start pulling it apart. We look for the specific behaviors. We look for the specific situations. We also look at how those interact with your job. So by the time there's 5 modules total. So by the time we get to the 3rd module, that's really where we start to look at, do I need to quit my job, sell my business, go do something else? Because you need to figure out yourself. You need to figure out what makes you tick, what's going on inside of you before you can look and say, you know what, it's the job, it's my boss, it's my coworkers, it's my employees, it's my vendors, client, whatever it is. Because we are so quick to point the finger outside of us before we do the internal work and really kind of, clear away the excuses, and we're honest with ourselves about what we're really doing that's contributing to the stress in our lives. So once you can get that part of it under control, it's a lot easier to see. Okay. And a lot of people have made these decisions based on what they read online about their jobs. And this is messing with your career. It's so easy to say, quit your job and do something else. But you may actually have a great job. It's just that, you weren't able to focus on your strengths and your talent, your natural strengths and talents. You were, over here doing something, completely different, or you find yourself just constantly immersed in busy work because you don't know how to delegate. Or, you have a boss that you just haven't been communicating with, or or an employee that you haven't learned how to communicate with. So it's kind of looking at being able to look at your role in the situation a little bit more objectively. And I think that it saved a lot of people a lot of grief, from having to start over again going, okay, you know what, this is the right job, wrong company. Or this is the kind of employee I should be managing, or I actually want, versus what I'm actually hiring. Or this was my discovery. I shouldn't be managing employees.
There you go. Just eliminate it completely, right?
There needs to be that buffer. I need to have that person that will manage people for me, because I don't have the patience for it. It's not that I don't like employees. I don't like managing them. It's not in my wheelhouse to explain things over and over and over again. I was looking at the things that were frustrating me, making a list of all the things that were frustrating me and pissing me off. And, there were certain things that were like, girl, that's what it takes to manage an employee. If you don't want to do it, then somebody else needs to.
Well, and I want to pull out there what you said is you made that list of what was actually frustrating you, instead of just, I know a lot of times I'll go to, I'm tired and I don't want to do this. And then that's as far as I go with it. And you can't really fix that. That's not the place where you can do anything yet. So you make that list. I love that. So you get down to the details.
And even if you're not the boss, like I recognize some people are going to be listening to this that aren't the boss, you don't have as much control over what's happening to you. And I totally understand that. But what's not happening most of the time is the communication between the boss and the employee. I know I wasn't hearing my employees all the time when they were talking to me. So if there had been that buffer between the two of us, we could have had some completely different conversations and completely different relationships, possibly in certain cases. So it's a matter of being very clear with what you do and you don't want to do. And going in solution oriented, armed with, the idea of how to communicate with another human being. And sometimes that might take somebody else intervening to make that happen. So, if you're listening to this and you're going, great, yeah, I can really delegate, Jennifer, that's going to happen. That may not happen, and there, the other part of that is right job, wrong company, right? So you may need to go do that job for somebody else that has different requirements for what you're doing. So there's more than one solution to this, is basically what I'm saying.
And I would throw into right service, wrong clients, because I went through a lot of those through the years too, where I was like, wow, I said yes to this. And so now I've kind of got my checklist of when I'm considering people, if you're going to be a person who says, oh, I've already done that and it doesn't work, then we're not a good fit, because I don't handle that well. Like I need people who are open. So I think when, especially younger creators and younger folks, you haven't experienced this stuff yet, so you don't have your list. So
you can have one started. And I will say with course creators, there are going to be clients that take your course that it's not a fit for them. So you need to have a plan of action of what to do with them. How do you cut them off? How do you cut them off professionally? And where are you going to send them? Because they came to you because they have a problem, and, they're sticking it out because they think they don't have any other choice. Well, who else is going to help me? Who else does this? They've built a certain level of comfort with you. Like there are people that come to me that are clearly burned out. They meet most of my criteria, but there's a mindset issue that they're just not willing to work on, and it makes it a bad fit for both of us. So it's being able to recognize. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious, how do you handle that? Because I think this also gets into refund policy a little bit. So many people go there just because I get folks asking about that.
Yeah.
Especially when your students decide it's not a fit. How do you particularly handle it?
Right now, I'm small enough that I can have the conversation. Well, why do you why do you want a refund, or why do you need a refund? If it's, I got into this course and it's not connecting for me. They're actually having a conversation where they're communicating with me and saying, this is why this isn't working. I am a lot more likely to be empathetic and understanding and say, here's your money back, because I don't want you to struggle. It's not worth it. I don't want anybody to struggle. But if somebody comes to me and says, I just don't have the money for this right now, well, that's a different story. I know that's hard, but I don't have the way my course is set up. You can sign up for it at any time. It's not just offered twice a year. It's poor planning on your part that you're trying to turn into my emergency, or make my problem. And, that for me is a lot harder to digest in terms of offering a refund or accepting that. But, at the end of the day, you really need to, what I've done is I've really had a conversation with myself. It sucks to lose money. It sucks to have to give money back. It sucks to not be a fit for somebody because you want everybody to love you and like you, but we're not all for everyone. I recognize 100% I'm not for everybody. The way I coach, the way I think about things, the way that I talk about things, I cuss. I know that that's not for everyone. But you're not going to, if my ultimate goal is I actually want you to recover from burnout and I actually want you to get your stress managed, what good does it do to force you to stay in my course unwillingly, just creating stress, right? Than to let you go. And sometimes, we need to adjust our refund policy to sometimes it'll be a partial refund. I see a lot of refund policies that are all or nothing. There's a gray area in there where you can say, look, you've been in this course for 50% of the duration, or you've gone through 50% of the course. And now you're telling me, this isn't for you. Hey, I'm still, you're still using my time and expertise, that I deserve to be paid for. So, there's also considering that middle ground where maybe it's a partial refund. They don't get all their money back, but
I love that idea.
You're not totally out, the $500 that, you were counting on being paid.
And especially when you put time in with folks that way, that feels more validating of like, yes, I'm not the fit, but I did give them attention. So I want that to be recognized. So yeah, that's really good. Yeah. The other thing you do that I think is fantastic, especially for folks who are maybe not ready to jump into your course, is you have a journal that helps them that they can get on Amazon. And I think it's like $30 or something, like really inexpensive to get started. So when do we tell us about the journal a little bit? So anybody who's interested, I will have all the links in the show notes so you can go get one. But I loved it. I saw it before you got it printed, and it is primo, fantastic. The layout is so calming and everything. But what was your intention for the journal for folks? It's so good.
I'm blushing. Thank you, Julie. So the journal is called Unstuck and Unstressed. And it's a journal for people that need peace in their life. And it's very cheeky. It's my sarcastic sense of humor about burnout and stress management and the world around us. It shines through in this journal. You will definitely hear my voice. So if you want to know what it's like to work with me, without a significant investment, then this $30 journal is perfect. It's all about learning how to build an awareness of your stress so that you can manage it. I don't know very many people that are very aware of how much stress is really going on and where it comes from, what triggers it. And so this journal, if you'll spend 28 days with it, which is like $1 a day, y'all, if you'll spend 28 days with it, you will go back at the end of the 28 days and you can see a pattern. You can see where your stress is coming from. And more often than not, we're really surprised at what's triggering it. The trigger is something else. It started before the actual what turned out to be the stressful event or the event where you finally blew your lid. So, it's easy. It takes you less than, I'd say, probably 10 minutes a day is what people are now telling me it takes them to use, to go through it every day. It just depends on how much you want to write. Even if you're not a journaler, this is a great journal for you too. It's designed to go both ways. If you want to spill your guts out, or if you just want to circle stuff and fill things in, or you don't mind reading questions and just kind of actively thinking about it in your brain for a few minutes and then moving on, it still helps serve that purpose. But if you are somebody that's burned out, you need to there's no way to recover without getting a handle of your stress levels. And you can't get a handle on your stress levels until you're aware of what they actually are.
Oh, so good. And I know we're going over time, but I just love talking to you. I know this is going to be so helpful.
Talking to you too.
So I have one last thing that I want to, if you don't mind sharing with us. And that is, are there some things we can do prevention wise? Like, I know you have a bunch of resources for us. Once we hit this, oh my God, I fell apart and I'm burned out. But are there a few things that you would help to kind of prevent getting to that place to begin with?
Yes. I'm going to give you the things that I wish somebody had done for me. The first thing is, building an awareness of your time and your energy, how you use both of them. Because we take for granted that they exist. And while you can refill your energy wells, you cannot get time back. So becoming very conscious of how you're using your time usually means you become very conscious of how you are using your energy as well, because you're not going to want to piss away time on something you don't enjoy doing. Right. So time, having that understanding of what that means to you, and how you use it is a big preventative measure. So building some awareness there. Also building stress management into your daily routine is a great preventative measure. Learning, okay, I start to hit a lull at this point, and instead of trying to push through and finish something, it'd be better if I took, 5-10 minutes and took a break. Because a lot of us, and I include myself, because I have to catch myself doing this. My dogs are really good at interrupting me, and going, "Oh, you need to go outside with us now. Let's go. You've been sitting here too long." I've learned to listen to them more often. They're very wise, my dogs. But, building, fun back into your day. As adults, we are horrible at having fun. We don't think we need it, but having fun actually helps spur creativity. It helps build your confidence. It helps you rejuvenate faster. It helps you rebuild your energy faster. It helps keep your stress levels in check, y'all. So plan fun. If not every day, plan it into your week a couple of times a week, where you go spend time with a friend, you work on a hobby that you enjoy, but have some fun. This doesn't mean, you have to take an entire day and go to an amusement park. It's, what is it that you enjoy doing? Go do it. Go have some, blow off some steam, so to speak. And then let's see, that's at least 2 or 3 things right there. So the 3rd or 4th thing, like I said, build your awareness to your stress levels. We don't know. We just don't. And before we know it, it's out of control. Stress is very sneaky in how it operates in our bodies, which makes stress really dangerous. That's why you hear people like me, I'm not a doctor, but you hear doctors and therapists and all kinds of people screaming about your stress levels, because they make you sick. They affect everything. Those stress hormones that are fired off when your stress response is kicked off, they can do a lot of damage when they go unchecked. Having some stress in your life is normal. It's a natural part of, how things go. But when you don't keep, your stress levels in check, meaning that you know how to cut it off, you know how to recognize it, and then you also know how to cut it off. You can interrupt your stress response in a matter of seconds, even just by laughing, and lower your stress levels. So,
wow.
Being aware that you're stressed out, what are your signals? Shoulders up to your ears. Are you gritting your teeth? Are you, do you have some nervous tics? What is your body's way of telling you that you're stressed out? And build your awareness to that. Because the biggest thing you can do is, burnout is all about chronic stress that didn't get managed. So getting your stress managed and under control and learning how to deal with it, recognize it and deal with it, is going to be critical to you not becoming burned out.
I love that. And I think you said to me once, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but the stress hormones mess with the way our brains are working, right?
Yes.
So it makes it harder. I can't remember. It makes it harder to have one piece of it. Fill in the blanks for me.
Sure. I'm like, did I say that? I don't remember what I said 10 minutes ago. Yeah. So what stress is doing inside of your body. So when your stress response kicks off, it's directing blood everywhere but your brain. So, which lovely. Means, yeah, right. So that the levels of oxygen and blood that you're used to having to operate, to have coherent thoughts, to make good decisions, to make sound decisions, to think through, problems, it's harder to do when you're stressed out. I mean, think about it, think about like when you're under the gun, and you're just kind of doing this thing where you're going back and forth in your brain. Do I do this? Do I do that? And like your brain doesn't have any power to regulate itself. And so what you have to do is bring that blood flow and that oxygen back to your brain. So your brain isn't just swimming in the stress hormones that your body is sending up to it. Basically, this is very unscientific, and this is not, I mean, the way I think about it is that basically your blood and oxygen is being replaced by stress hormones, which are basically creating a lot of fuzz. So when you're stressed out, your clarity is nearly gone. That's why you have trouble having creative ideas. That's why you have trouble making decisions. That's where decision fatigue comes from. By the end of your day, you've made thousands of decisions consciously and unconsciously. So by, the time you get to dinner and you're like, I don't know what I want. Why do I, and you're tired and you've got some stress, your stress levels are probably the highest that they're going to be at throughout your day. And so that's why your brain can't even make a basic decision about what you want for dinner.
I think that is so huge. I hope everybody caught that your brain is just not getting enough oxygen and blood. And that's why everything feels so impossibly hard, at least for me. That's where I would go to and be like, how come I can't be smarter about this?
Why is this not working right now? And that's, when I have trouble speaking, I think that's a really big trigger sign for me, is when the words aren't coming to me, that I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and my stress levels are probably raised more than they should be. So I have a harder time with the combination of those two, actually having a coherent conversation or telling you exactly what I think. You'll hear me say, God, what's the word for that? About 75 times in a 2-minute conversation. But, our bodies, are basically still operating on caveman time. So it used to be that the biggest stress in our life was eating and running away from danger. And so our bodies, the way evolution worked is that all of our blood and oxygen went to our extremities so that we could feed we could go hunt for food or run away from the wild lion or bear that was chasing us. And we just haven't evolved to the more modern threats, that are being posed at us. So, knowing that about yourself and knowing that that's kind of what's happening in your brain can also, inside your body, can also help you, recognize your stress response. Like I just said, I know, because what's not getting served up to my brain, my speech becomes incoherent, my ideas are lost. And it's just like, I just got to go, And the other thing to know about your brain is that your brain loves certainty. It does not love uncertainty. It wants to know things. And so it gets very stressed out when it's in unfamiliar territory, because it's seeking certainty. So, that's, if you're creating a new course and or you're getting on social media to start marketing your course, and your brain is really fighting back, going, well, you don't have any data on that. You don't know for sure that people are going to watch your videos or come buy your course. your brain is fighting you because it's looking for certainty. And so you need to find a way to take a deep breath and say, hey, brain, I know this isn't what you want right now, but this is what, this is the process. And, I kind of talk myself down or talk my brain down from its panic attacks, by saying, hey, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this damn course is going to sell. But, here's what I do know needs to be done or has been done by other successful course creators to sell their course. And I'm going to go do those things. And that provides it some of the certainty that it's hungering for, and also gets your stress levels to calm down too.
Calm down. I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially trying to launch, I think it's one of the most challenging times to get in front of folks and share your stuff. And especially as a brand new course creator, if people haven't been through it yet, it's a lot for your brain. So
see, and that's why you get phone calls from me, Julie. What?
Oh my gosh, this has been so good, and I totally went over our time, but I hope you don't mind because your stuff is so
my gosh,
good.
Not at all. Thank you. Not at all. I've really enjoyed this. This was fun. And thank you to everybody that's listening.
Yeah, and make sure you guys get on Jennifer's email list and check out her stuff. I'll put all the links in the show notes for you because, like I said, she talks me off the ledge all the time.
I also want to say, I talk about a lot of the stuff that most people don't want to talk about, or at least acknowledge is happening, especially a lot of other burnout coaches. They kind of scratch the surface on some stuff. And I'm a business owner and I don't have time for BS. And I know you don't either. And so, I really try to dig deep on some of the issues that we as business owners face. So I've really worked hard to make it worth your time to be part of my community and be part of my email list as well. So don't sleep on that.
And definitely, because I read through your stuff and I'm like, it's like a little relaxation pill. I'm like, oh, she totally gets it. And this is what I can do. Because you have kind of that balance of like, not only knowing your students, but you give us concrete things to do, which I love. Sometimes you don't get both of those from coaches, and so I love that. So thank you so much.
I love hearing that. Thank you. I love that feedback. Thank you.
Appreciate it, and have a wonderful week. And thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you grab Jennifer's free stuff and get on her list and check out her course and her journal because it's so good. I know it will help all of you perfectionists and over burned out folks out there,
overachievers, all you high achievers.
Yes. So we want to be successful and enjoy our lives while we're at it. So.
Exactly. Thank you, Julie, so much. You know how much I adore you, and your podcast is amazing. And if y'all don't listen to Julie and do what Julie tells you to do and buy Julie's course as well and get on her email list, you're missing out. You've been a godsend to me as well, sister. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
You too. Thanks, Julie.